Everybody, it is Delusion Dispeller DD coming to you today to discuss cults. Two in particular, or two belief systems I believe are very cultic. One is the one that I believed and still kind of hold to, which is the Word of Faith movement. And the other one is called Universal Medicine. I just found out about this today, and actually I had heard of something universal, but I don't think it was universal medicine back in the day. Anyways, I don't know why people pop in and then pop out all the time. That really irritates my mind. I think I'm too OCD or something about that. I need to just like put a little label up here where it shows how many people are in here and just ignore it the whole time so that I'm not so conscious of it, because it absolutely drives me bonkers here. I'm going to put an envelope right over it. So I'm not even looking at it. I'm just going to talk. All right. So anyways, I want to talk to you today about what I discovered about universal medicine and also share with you how it kind of compares to what I spent several years raising my children in and believing myself, which was the Word of Faith belief system, which there's good and there's bad in it. There's truth and there's lies. There's a balance of a little bit of everything in the Word of Faith movement. If taken out of context and taken too far, it becomes a real problem. Hold on a second. I'm getting a little chilly here. I'm going to put this scarf over me just to give me a little bit more warmth because it's cold in this place. Brr. I need to turn my heat up. I haven't done that yet. I probably should go do that. Because if it's cold for me, I know it's cold for the kitty cats. So just a minute. Let me go turn my heat up. I will be right back. All right, that should do it. I got it up to 72. I think that'll work. All right, so let me get my notes out here and we'll start. All right, first of all, I don't think I need to define what a cult is. I think everybody has their own idea of what a cult is, and everything that you believe is pretty much going to be accurate. You know, it's an odd sense of beliefs. It's done through what's called love bombing, where somebody comes up to you and they give you all the answers that you ever needed and tell you exactly what you want to hear, and they befriend you. They're like your closest friend. They isolate you from others. You all know all of that, okay? So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. So let's talk about what I experienced in the Word of Faith beliefs that I not only came to believe but raised my children to believe all their lives while I was raising them. First of all, this type of group gives you total acceptance. They will take you just as you are. In fact, they'll say, Jesus says, come as you are. So you can be a drug addict. You can be, I don't know, somebody that's really hurt people, a murderer, whatever, whatever you are, they'll accept you. Most of them, at least the group that I was in would. I mean, they were guarded. I won't say they just let every crazy person into a group, but pretty much everyone was accepted. So you felt like, okay, no matter what I do, I have friends, I have these people that welcome me. I have a place to go to where there's like-minded people. So I'm going to dedicate my life to learning these beliefs. And they seem happy. The people seem so happy. Always in cults, they do seem happy. And maybe some of them genuinely are happy because they found something that works for them. I know I was very happy. I was extremely healthy for 3.5 years of my life when I was involved in Word of Faith. I don't know if my belief system kept germs out of my body or what the deal was, but I was extremely healthy. I didn't so much as have a sniffle one day during the 3 or 4 years I was involved with Word of Faith. I just really didn't. So you have that total acceptance. You feel really great. There's a sense of oneness in these types of groups that, like I said, like-minded belief systems, and everybody believing the same thing, everybody practicing the same thing, everybody telling each other the same thing. In fact, when I first came to the Word of Faith movement, and I tried to discuss some painful situations I had at another church, I was quickly bam, shut off. We don't go there. We don't talk about that. That's negative confession. We're not going to do that. What does the word say? What does the Bible say? The Bible says to forgive. The Bible says to love. The Bible says to restore. Okay, that's what we're focusing on. We're not going to talk about what they did to you. We're not going to discuss that. Even though this person was very much in the wrong, we're not going there because it just creates, that negative energy, although they didn't call it that. They probably called it like a negative spirit or something like that, or bitterness. The root of bitterness will spring up among you. So I wasn't allowed to talk about the fact that there was this minister that abused me and very badly abused me. I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about emotionally, spiritually, etc. Hey, Deb. Wow, girl. Long time no see. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Maybe it was your topic, huh? The topic that you could relate to. You've been through the ringer too. All right. So that's the first thing, is the oneness feeling, the feeling that we are all one. It almost does feel like you're all kind of one consciousness. You've probably heard of like the Moonies, Sun Yun Moon's followers, how they had this, what they call the collective consciousness, or we are all one. We have all one being. We have one soul, whatever. We have one center and we're all one. Yeah, same kind of thing in the word of faith. We are all one. We all believe this. And anybody that doesn't, well, we'll get to that later. So there's a sense of oneness. Exclusion. There was definitely this sense of we four and no more. Like we are here on the inside over here, and you all are way out there. We can't relate to you. You guys are out there. So you don't understand what we believe. You do not get it because you're not of the spirit. So we can't talk to you about this stuff. That would be casting our pearls before swine, after all. Because you would take what we tell you and you would rend us to pieces. So there were kids not talking to their parents about their beliefs. There were husbands not talking to their wives, or vice versa. We didn't talk to people about it that were not in our group, in our clique, if you will. So it's a sense of exclusion. We are better than you. We have this inside knowledge that you don't have, and we don't want to have anything to do with you because you don't have this knowledge, because you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand us. So you can't relate to us. You see this even in like Scientology. They do a lot of exclusion and isolation. They keep their people very much in this compound, in this building. Now, in the sense of the so-called Christian church, and I'm not saying everything is not Christian, I'm just saying the things that I was involved in a lot of the times. There was a building. You weren't kept there, but you were compelled to be there because there was exciting things going on. There was always a conference and always a new speaker and always healing services and deliverance services and anything to just pique your curiosity and keep you knitted to this organization. You just felt like you wanted to be there. Who wouldn't want to be where like happy, exciting things were happening and people were being healed and, deliverances were happening. And yes, some of it was real. I honestly, with all my heart, believe that. I saw a girl get healed of deafness. So I'm not negating healing. I believe healing is for today and it is real. But I also believe that, unfortunately, things can go off on tangents and get taken in the wrong direction or get taken to extremes where it's not a good situation. And that's what I'm talking about today. Not the legit churches out there, the legit religious groups and things like that are really helping people. I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about cultic groups like the fringe, as they call them. Another thing that's very common in cults, and yes, was common in the Word of Faith movement, was the positive affirmations. And there's different ways this comes about. If you've ever heard of the book called The Secret, very interesting book, very strange book in some ways, but it basically believed in it taught, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not positive affirmation, the law of agreement, the positivity, and there's another word too. And I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically you get what you put forth into the universe, it comes back to you. And Word of Faith is very much like that, except there's a little bit of a different kind of angle on Word of Faith. Word of Faith says you can speak it into being, but it has to be based on the Bible. So as long as you speak a scripture into being, it will be. Now, this is the part I kind of agree with. I said I still kind of hold some of those beliefs. I believe that if you call things that be not as though they are, that can happen. Do I believe it always happens? No, I don't. Word of faith teaches that it must happen. It has to. There's no way it can't, because God cannot lie. So everything in that Bible has to happen just as it says. And you can take that and run with it and cause a lot of damage to people. What about the person that was born with some type of a challenge? Like, we'll say muscular dystrophy, just to give an example, or maybe autism or something. Like my husband was born autistic. And this belief system, as well as cultic belief systems, believe there is something wrong with that person. Either somebody did something to cause that, or that person is just not completely whole. So we have to pray them into wholeness. We have to make sure that this damage that was done is reversed completely and that they are totally 100% completely whole and healed. And the way we know that is they'll no longer have the problem. So you're going to take somebody with multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, autism, whatever, and what we're going to do is we're going to put hands on them. We're going to pray over them. We're going to believe God for a total, complete restoration, every whit whole, every whit whole. So that means every bit of them is going to be restored. So their mind is no longer going to be Down syndrome, autistic, whatever. Their bodies are going to function completely normal. Every limb is going to bend the way it should. And suddenly that person is going to spring up out of that wheelchair and be able to walk. It does happen. I'm not going to negate the idea that this can happen. But does it every time? No. And I can tell you for proof that it does not. I have watched people at a Benny Hinn conference stand there and wait in line. How do I know that? I was one of the people. I was in line at a Benny Hinn conference waiting for my daughter to be healed of an ear infection. She was screaming, crying, in so much pain. She was just a baby, I'm pretty sure. Just absolute crying like you never heard before, in so much agony. I waited in that darn Benny Hinn line for the longest time, and I watched people in way worse conditions, crippled, walking up there with their canes, their braces, their wheelchairs. Some of them got up on stage and were miraculously healed. They got up out of their wheelchairs and, ran across the stage, whatever. Interestingly enough, I guess when they ran out of the staged ones, he turned and said basically he had to go. He just kind of disappeared. And I watched the faces drop of those people in that line, like, wait a minute, wait, sir. We didn't have our turn. We want you to pray for us. And like I said, I was one of those people. So I went home with a screaming baby in the car, laid hands on her myself and prayed, and amazingly she stopped crying. Took her to the doctor. There was no ear infection. Did I need Benny Hinn to lay hands on her? Apparently not. Now, does it work every time? Apparently not. Those crippled people limped out the same way they came in, off of that stage looking heartbroken. I was so devastated and so disillusioned to see that these people that had waited for so long in line didn't even get a chance to go up and so much as shake his hand. I mean, that could tell you something right there, I guess. All right, so positive affirmations is what we were talking about. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Why? I don't know. I'm not God. I don't know why sometimes people get healed and sometimes they don't. I have no idea. I don't have an answer for that. I just believe until I know otherwise. That's the way I live my life. I pray for people. I know that He has the power to heal. And that's it. I don't believe it's anything that I'm speaking that heals it, except that I'm coming into agreement and saying, yes, I believe this. That's as far as my faith goes. And you only need faith as tiny as a mustard seed. And the rest is in His hands ultimately anyways. But cults teach that if you speak something and it doesn't happen, there is something wrong with you. You're either saying it wrong, you're reading the wrong verse, you're doing the wrong book, whatever. And then the blame becomes something on the person believing the cultic beliefs. And they walk around in shame and blame, feeling like I didn't do it right. Something's wrong with me. I need to do something different. I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing wrong? And it may not be anything you're doing wrong. It may be that that person is just really sick and they're possibly going to get sicker. It might be something they've eaten or done. I don't know. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the body just breaks down for unknown reasons. We don't have answers to everything. Even medical science will tell you there are not reasons behind every illness that happens. We don't know why people get sick. We don't. We don't have the answers. I don't think we're meant to have the answers. Maybe that was something that happened, if you believe this, back in Adam and Eve days when they sinned. I don't know. I don't have that answer, and I'm sure most people don't. So, laying on of hands. That is something very common in a lot of cultic situations. We definitely did that in the Word of Faith movement, and yes, sometimes miraculous things happen, and other times nothing happened. But for a cult to do this, a lot of times they'll do it in the sense of healing, and other times they'll do it in the sense of what's called therapeutic healing, where they'll like lay hands, say this was somebody's body, my arm right here. They'll lay hands above and kind of hover, and you can feel the energy going into the body, and they'll move their hands around. I can even feel it like doing this right now. Why? Because our bodies are energy. Inside of our bodies, there is energy. Everybody knows that these forms that we're in are not our actual forms. There's energy inside of us. Whether you believe that that's like a spiritual thing or just a physical energy force, I don't know. But you will feel heat or some sort of feeling if you touch above your arm or touch above any part of somebody's body. You will. And sometimes that warmth can create energy that I believe can heal. However, people that do this, a lot of times, and in the case of cults, will be touching in areas they're not supposed to be touching, if you get my drift. And they'll call that healing. We need to heal your ovaries, ma'am. So they'll touch down below. Or, sir, we need to heal your groin area. And they'll touch in a bad place. That's not what is meant to happen in a healing situation. Now, thankfully, the places I went to, even the Word of Faith places, even the things I would say were kind of cultic, they did not do anything indecent. If anything, if they were laying hands even on a woman's belly for, like, say she wanted to have a baby and they would believe God to open the womb for fertility, they would have a woman lay the hand on the woman's belly, not down below, on her belly, and another woman lay her hand on top of her hand, and the gentleman, if they were praying, which was rare, usually women prayed for women, but if a gentleman prayed, he would put his hand on the woman's shoulder. So it was done decently. In a cult, it is not so. Cults have very few boundaries, and they have no trouble crossing your boundaries. Why do they do this? Because this gets you off of the defensive. If somebody will touch you in your private area and get you off the defensive, you'll start to become okay with it. You'll be like, oh, wow, well, I don't know. This doesn't feel right, but everybody's doing it, and everybody's okay with it. So I guess I should be okay. I don't want to be the odd man out. Maybe this is okay. Maybe this is just part of stirring up that energy. See how they just like gradually kind of ease you into being accepting of things that are unacceptable. That's a cult for you. That's what they do. All right. They will use teachings of various kinds. This universal medicine cult is teaching odd things. Like they told this one lady who was dying not to give any of her worldly possessions, or I guess money, to her family, and not to talk to them about any of her final plans, but to give it to him. Because these people that were in her family were beings that were malevolent and would use her money wrong, or I guess cause her harm in her future in some way or whatever. So give it to the cult leader instead. So you can imagine that this particular cult leader, Sergey, is getting rather rich in very sinister ways. The Word of Faith teachings could be very condemning sometimes. I was told that the reason why my husband, ex-husband now, but husband at the time, was abusing me is because I did not believe strong enough. And I did not live as the Proverbs 31 woman and be in total submission to everything he suggested and wanted. And that's why our marriage did not work out and was not working out. And that if I would just go home and be the submissive wife, cook and clean with a gentle and quiet spirit, don't say a word to him, you know, turn the other cheek. If they smack you, turn the other cheek to them, let them smack the other one. Yeah, those teachings are taken way out of context, even in the Word of Faith movement sometimes. I'm not saying every church, but the one I went to, they didn't tell me to turn my other cheek and get smacked, but they told me that it was because of me not believing strong enough, that my husband at the time, was not a believer, was not following the way, not that he wasn't in the truth. But if I would change my way, he would one day turn around and follow the truth. After 23 years of that baloney, and finally being told I ought to knock your head off by my ex-husband, I was done. I left. And I already told that story, so I won't get into that. All right. Another thing about cults is you often see the person that goes to them, you see a change in the lifestyle. If the person was a very happy person, they suddenly may become very solemn. Or if they were very withdrawn and secretive, now all of a sudden they're okay with telling all. It's a very abrupt, definite change in the person that is involved in this type of group. I know that with Word of Faith movements and salvation and deliverance and things like that, that we were taught, we looked for that change in a person. And very definitely, if somebody draws closer to God, there will be a change in that person. But is it a change for the better of the person and the people around them? Or is it a change that is so damaging that it causes problems in their relationships, problems in their jobs, causes them to withdraw from the friends that they had? That's the marking of a possible cult. And that's what you want to look for. This person changed. Yes, they seem happy, but what's really going on, you know, under the surface? Are they truly happy? Or are they simply brainwashed or brain soiled, as I call it? Are they brain soiled to believe whatever the person is telling them to believe? Which leads me to the next thing about a cult. Gentle suggestions, or as the universal medicine people may say, offers to believe a certain way or do a certain thing. They say, well, I was never forced. It was just offered to me. It was just suggested to me. In the Word of Faith movement, there is force behind it, or was force behind it. There was a lot of guilt heaped on me. There was a lot of this sense of, there's this thing out here, this spiritual enlightenment, if you will, that you have not yet attained. But you're coming up into it. You're coming up, girl. So just keep on speaking the word and you'll come up and you'll get there. But every time I felt like I had come up, they just kept saying, you're coming up. You're not there yet. You're coming up. And there was always this feeling of, man, will I ever make it to whatever this thing is I'm supposed to be coming up to? And I remember that more than anything in the Word of Faith movement was that there was always this elusiveness. Like there's this butterfly that's flying off and I need to catch it. And I haven't caught it yet. It keeps getting away. I keep trying to catch it. And I never caught it. There was never a sense of completeness. And until I met this friend, Pamela, I'm going to mention her name because she doesn't really come into my lives very much, my live videos, but she might on this one. She taught me about the completed work of Christ. So there was then this sense of, we do arrive because we arrived because of our Savior doing this for us. So there's this sense of it is finished. But in the Word of Faith movement, it's never finished. There's no finished process. You never arrive. And in cults, same thing. You never arrive. There's always more knowledge, a higher price to pay, more money we need. We need to invest more of our time, more of our energy, more of our finances. Cultic. Okay, with a cult and also the Word of Faith movement, there's a sense of joy. There's almost a sense of what they call euphoria. Why? Here's the interesting thing that I only learned back when I started studying narcissism and things like that, and relationships. There's a sense of what's called euphoria. Euphoria is that all is well with the world. Life is wonderful. Everything is good. There are no problems. Problem? What problem? Cancer does not exist. Sadness? No sadness. Anxiety? Oh no, that's just in your mind. That's not a real thing. Ignore your brain. Your brain is a liar. Listen to the spirit within. That's what I'm talking about, the joy, the euphoria. And it's a great feeling. You go through life, just nothing bothers me. Everything's awesome. In fact, there was a minister that used to say that when we would go on mission trips. He'd say, remember this. If you remember nothing else, nothing bothers me. That was a way to tell us, do not get into disputes with people on the bus. Do not say negative things on the bus. Everybody's just happy. Everybody's positive. We speak only positivity, which was wonderful, and it made for a very peaceful trip on the bus, but it's not reality because sad things do happen and bad things do happen in life. And yes, it's in the way that you perceive them and how resilient you are, excuse me, to overcome them. But honestly, reality is life is life, and life is going to dish out what it dishes out to you. You can decide how you react to it, yes. But should you put on a fake smile and be euphoric when you're hurting inside? No, because the very Bible that they claim tells you to be full of joy, unspeakable, and full of glory. Hang on. Is the same Bible that tells you to weep with those who weep and mourn with those who mourn. And that weeping will endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It says there's a season to everything. Every purpose under heaven. So therefore there is a season of mourning. There's going to be a season of sorrow and sadness. When you remember sad things that happened to you, it's natural to have tears and hurt. I did that on my video yesterday. I cried because I remembered what it was like to live in a shelter and have the beauty of somebody presenting us with a lovely Easter basket and something that made my daughter feel a little bit less of the blow of my decision that was very abrupt to leave my husband, her dad. So yes, you do cry tears. You do hurt when somebody dies. You do hurt when someone is sick. That's natural and normal. In a cult, might not be allowed. You may not be allowed to weep, or they may take it the other end of the spectrum and make everybody weep and just tell them cry and travail and mourn for the loss of your soul consciousness or who knows what. I've actually been in a Christian cult where they had the spirit of travail, where little kids and teenagers would literally sob for hours at a time. Literally, just I walked in and I was like, what on earth is going on here? And it was very loud sobbing going on. Old ladies, young ladies, men, women, children, whatever, were all sobbing. And when I asked later, they told me it was the spirit of travail. That is the spirit of travail. We travail until he comes. So in between whatever teachings they were teaching, there was a bunch of sobbing going on and wailing going on, and it was very odd. All right. Denial is part of a cult. I kind of talked about this briefly already. We pretend that nothing's wrong. We ignore the things that are wrong. We just act like, nope, there's nothing wrong. I don't see anything happening. I don't see that person on the floor having a seizure. That's not materialized true spiritual consciousness. They're just trying to find themselves or whatever. I don't know. They'll let people die right in front of them, people in cults. Now, word of faith, different story. They would have gone and cast the demon out of the person and then probably gotten the ambulance. But I'm just telling you, there are certain belief systems that are really out there in some ways. I'm not saying it was all bad. I'm saying I've seen some things and done some things that were kind of questionable at times and made me really kind of ask myself, is this for me and is this for real? So anyways, so they deny problems, they deny illnesses. They will actually condemn in a cult, condemn somebody for admitting they have an illness or for even drawing attention to an ache or a pain in their body. That's definitely cultic. All right. And for the word of faith, we used to, like I said, do deliverance or speak the word over the problem. You know, speak to your mountain and the mountain will move. And in some cases, it did move. And in other cases, the person needed a doctor. And a lot of times, We couldn't tell the difference between the two because everything was a faith matter. And you can have faith and still go to a doctor. Heck, even doctors have faith. Hopefully, most of them, I think, that I've met, have faith that what they're telling you to do is going to help you. The advice they're giving you is going to yield a different situation than what you came in there with. So yes, God works through doctors too. But in the cult, they have their own doctors, usually therapeutic healers of some sort in some of the cults. Like I told you about putting your hand above the body and sort of dragging it along type of thing. Therapeutic healing. And then, you know, you're supposed to get healed. You're supposed to be all better. And if you're not, then, well, there's something wrong with your belief system. You're not believing hard enough. You're letting too much of that worldly stuff get into your head and into your heart, and it's blocking your healing process. I'm sure some of you have already been informed of all this stuff at the cults that you've been in or the groups that you've gone to that were cultic. Very common. They'll just tell you, you know, something's wrong with you because this situation should have been dealt with. And we don't know why it's happening, but there's something not right inside you. There's something stopping it. You need to go and do some real soul searching and real praying and real seeking to find out what's going on with you, why you're not better by now. Okay. There's usually a sense of some kind of a hypnotic force or energy involved in cults as well. Hang on, I'm telling my husband I will be there to pick him up at 9. That's when I need to get him because he's having his problems again with his health, throwing up and having issues. All right. So there's a hypnotic force or energy involved in cults. There's also a force involved in the Word of Faith movement. When people would lay hands on me, I would literally feel stuff. Like I would feel basically an energy, a surge going through me and this power kind of. And sometimes, yes, it resulted in a healing. It resulted in headaches going away. It resulted in earaches going away. And other times, nothing. Now, some people would tell you in the Word of Faith movement, that's because the person that laid hands on you was not right with God. They were not prayed up and they were not in the spirit, and you shouldn't let anybody lay hands on you suddenly. Now, I believe that's true in all cases. Don't let anybody touch you suddenly, or somebody that you don't know touch you. This body here, this is your boundary, okay? And you have a right to protect that boundary and not let just anybody, you know, do anything like that. Oh, now he's apologizing for having to go to the doctors. Hang on a second, y'all. It's okay. All right. So yeah, so you have to protect yourself and protect your body and not let people touch it in any sort of way if it's not something that you're comfortable with. But in religious circles, it's something that's expected. Oh, well, we all hug. We all embrace. We all hold hands. This is what we do. What's the matter with you? We're trustworthy. You don't have to panic or worry about us. We're not going to do anything to hurt you. You know, come into the circle. Come join us. And then, alternately, in the Word of Faith movement, I was blocked out of circles, which feels just as bad, let me tell you, than being forced into a circle you're not comfortable with. When you feel like, hey, I have as much power to lay hands on people and pray for them as you do. Why are you shutting the door in my face, bringing all my friends in there to pray over that person, but shutting me out? What, am I not as spiritual as you are? I used to get very angry about it, and I still feel angry when I think about all the times that's been done to me. Like I have not arrived at whatever spiritual level other people have to go in and pray over people. I was a deliverance minister for years. I have cast demons out of people. I have prayed for inner healing with people. Oh yes, and I know you'll grab this video, whoever wants to make those spoof videos, and have fun with it. Go for it, whatever. I know what my reality was. I know what I went through. I know what happened, and I know what the truth was. So you can take it and do whatever you're going to do with it. Pretty soon, I guess on the 25th, tomorrow, you may not be able to do that because I think YouTube is cracking down on that kind of stuff. Anyway, so there's an energy involved in cults and in the Word of Faith movement as well that sometimes was used as a way to wield power over people.
Like you have the energy and you don't. So the one that doesn't is not included. That's more that exclusion thing again. All right. In the Word of Faith movement, we were involved in a lot of healing services, deliverance services, and there was a lot of hype surrounding it. Now, once again, I'm going to offer this disclaimer. I am not bad-mouthing healing. I believe in healing, but there were certain circles and certain groups I was in that were really odd. They took things way out of context. Like, for instance, there was this one place I went to where we would like form a train or a bridge, I guess, like where we would all kind of, if you can picture it, we were, pretend these are two arms, okay, of people. We would touch our arms like this and form a bridge, and people would like go under the bridge. And supposedly, I don't know if it happened or not. I didn't dare go under the bridge very much, but people would feel this power as they got under this bridge of people, and they would be healed, or God would talk to them in a certain way, or whatever. Now, I don't particularly see that in the Bible, so I was always leery of it, and I didn't really take part in that. There was another thing around the same time. This was in the kind of Word of Faith or sort of circle like that. There was a time they had Native Americans come to the church and tell us all that the reason why we were ill and why America was in trouble was because we were desecrating the graves of their dead ancestors. And we were not honoring them, and that we should pray and ask forgiveness from the dead Indians, the dead Native Americans, so that our land would be healed. I'm sorry, but that seemed kind of off to me. I get it that Native Americans have certain types of beliefs that are different, but bringing that into the Christian, so-called Christian group just didn't seem right to me. It seemed kind of off and kind of odd, and it made me uncomfortable. So that was when I took my daughter and left. We didn't stay after church for that type of situation. Another thing, there was a girl that came and read palms in our service. Now, the pastor didn't know that's what she was doing. He thought she was just grabbing people's hands and praying over them. No, she was reading our palm. She read my palm. I always wondered why she knew stuff about my daughter that I had told nobody, and she knew it. Well, she was reading my palm, which means she either got her power from hocus pocus, suggestion, or the devil himself. My vote is the devil. I don't know, and I'm sure pagans and witches out there will get very offended by me saying that, but yes, I do believe you get your power from the underworld, not from God. So that is my belief. You can like it or not. It's fine with me. Okay, now let's talk more about this universal medicine thing, because I'm going to have to go get my husband in about an hour, and I've already talked enough about Word of Faith. You kind of get the gist, and most of you know what Word of Faith involves if you watch TBN, because that's pretty much Word of Faith stuff. There's good and there's bad in it. It's really to have faith in things. It's good to believe against the unbelief and against the doubt that things can happen. That will really build you up spiritually to dispel a lot of your doubts. But don't go overboard and not see a doctor if you're sick. Don't go overboard and tell somebody with a broken leg to rip their cast off or their brace and start hopping around and call it done. I mean, come on, balance, people, balance. All right. And it took me a long time to even be able to get on here and say this, because I was one of those people that were in those groups that believed that way, that you're supposed to be healed. What is wrong with you? What sin is there in your life that you are laying there in that hospital bed with your leg propped up on one of those hanging things, and you're not jumping out of that bed dancing around? Come on, come up in your faith, man. That was me. That was definitely me for a long time. Now I have balance in my life, thankfully, and I get it that not everybody's going to hop up out of the hospital bed. It's not always the way it works. All right. Let's talk about universal consciousness. Sure. Universal medicine, a group that has sprung up, I don't know when. I think it's been around for a while now. Run by a man named Serge Ben Hayen. All right. This man is allegedly breaking up families. He told a lady, like I told you, to avoid leaving her children any assets before she died and give them to him instead. He teaches that children with disabilities are inhabited by either aliens or demon entities. due to past abuse by their authority figures. They were out of control and they were domineering. So therefore, this child was born with autism or whatever illness. They eat diets that are very low in carbs, very, very low, kind of like the keto, I would say. And they put their newborn babies on these diets. And there was one baby that ended up in the hospital almost dying because they were not giving this baby enough carbs to live on. They took the baby off the breast and put him right on this virtually no carb diet. And the kid almost died. There was inappropriate touching for healing purposes going on with men and women. One guy even said that he went to the surge, whatever, and he laid his hand on his behind and I guess made this motion, and he asked him what happened. He said, I'm pulling a snake out of your booty, basically. True story. All right. Well, at least alleged true story by the guy that it happened to. He taught that people needed to ask to hug their own spouses. Like you had to stand a certain amount of place away and have your arms out like this and hug in a certain way. And I guess one woman was walking through her house burping, like repeatedly burping, expelling aliens or demons or something. I don't know. So that's one of his teachings, that there's alien beings inside people that cause these illnesses and stuff, which is similar to Scientology, because Scientology teaches about this guy that I guess flew around in some kind of, I don't know, spaceship or something, and there was some situation where all these demon entities came down to Earth and inhabited certain people. I don't know the full story. I really don't, because I don't really get that into studying Scientology. But you can look it up. You'll know what I'm talking about, and you'll just kind of shake your head too. Anyway, the interesting thing to me, which is common in most cults, is there's music involved. I didn't know that till I found an actual song from the cult. And they weren't singing, they were just playing instruments. And as I was watching and listening to this music, which was flutes and electric guitar and all kinds of stuff, I was feeling kind of like lightheaded almost listening to this music. It was real soothing. But then they had this, I guess it's Serge's son or some relative or something, the cult leader, came up the aisle with an electric guitar going, you know how guitars go, and added to the music, and then got up on the stage and continued to play this mesmerizing song with the rest of the instruments. And the people were just sitting there with these dumb smiles on their face, just like looking like this, all so happy and just so at peace and whatever, because they really believe it. And I don't mean they're dumb. The smiles were dumb, and the only reason I said that was because they were phony. They were just kind of like, well, not their smiles weren't phony, but it's phony what's going on here. The teachings are way out there, way, way out there. Anyway, a lady named, the last name Rocket, got the Wales division of the cult shut down, and it was labeled as a socially dangerous cult. They were indicted, or whatever the word is, for like all kinds of bad practices and stuff. They were really a mess, and they closed them down in Wales, Australia. But then, of course, like cults do, they moved. They moved to someplace in England or something and started up again. So now they have a compound there and a headquarters there, a hub, as they call it, where they can continue their little cultic ways. When this lady actually got the guy in trouble for the cult, he sued her for defamation, but he still had to leave Australia, so he went to another place. Now, we hear about suing for defamation all the time on YouTube lately, don't we? That's pretty common. Everybody's suing everybody for libel and slander and defamation of character. And yeah, people are sue happy. We know that. But sometimes, you know, it's warranted. And in the case of your family being broken up and people dying because they won't let them go to doctors and things like that, it's warranted to sue. It's warranted to take matters into your hands and say this person needs to be accountable for the harm that they caused my family. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't sue. In some cases, you need to. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that little bit of information for a while with you guys. I probably should get off of here and go do some other things. There's only been 2 people the whole time. That's all right. I'm going to upload this one to Facebook. I did not upload yesterday's video to YouTube, not Facebook. I did not upload yesterday's to YouTube because I mentioned where my husband worked. He did not want to get in trouble for that. He asked me to remove it. I could not remove it out of the video. I tried to upload it to YouTube and remove it, and I accidentally deleted it. And once you delete something on Facebook, apparently you can't get it back. So that one's gone forever. So I hope you enjoyed the recipe that I cooked yesterday. Unfortunately, it didn't make it to YouTube. But anyhow, everybody that watches this, God bless you. I hope you seek your own truth and talk to God and ask him to show you what is true and what is not, and follow what he says. I believe we all were created by him, and that he puts that desire in you to find the truth. And I encourage you to look for it, and don't believe somebody else's truth as your own truth. Look up for yourself what you believe. Find out what you want to adhere to, and adhere to that. And if it looks hokey and it feels uncomfortable, it generally is. So don't be ashamed in leaving something that feels off base to you. Protect yourself. You only got one self, one family, one being of who you are, one soul, one spirit, whatever. Protect it, because you need to. It's your right. It's your responsibility. Don't let people touch you in a wrong way. Don't let people tell you things and believe them just because they say it. Use your own brain, use your own spirit, and seek out for yourself the truth and the answers. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next live. Blessings, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.